So yesterday I made a video about the Valkyrie. I was basically just expressing my confusion as to why what should be the best berserk weapon in the game isn't really better than the Felthorn Reaper, which is like a tenth of the price. Anyway, yesterday I showed this. It was a poll that I held to see how many people actually use the giant sword. And I'm not going to lie, the slander towards the giant sword in the comments is absolutely outrageous. Some people were honest and said that they couldn't afford it, or that they're Iron Man and they haven't dropped it, or so on. But there was a lot of people who were saying unthinkable things about this great weapon. And honestly, if you wanted to get your hands on this weapon, now has never been a better time. It's dropped almost 100 million coins since the Berserk update. Bearing in mind, in the Berserk update, this weapon actually got buffed. It now gives us a base plus 500 damage and an extra swing range. In comparison to the Claymore, it gives exactly the same base damage. The Claymore gives an extra 100 strength and 30 crit damage and an extra swing range. But it's also over 200 million coins more expensive. I went ahead and purchased this here giant sword, which set me back around about 230 mil. Now the reason why I mentioned the Dark Claymore is because a lot of people would choose a Dark Claymore over a Giant Sword because it's better, which it is. Basically, the Dark Claymore is the Giant Sword's bigger brother. It doesn't do, I mean, it does the same base damage, but it also has additional strength and crit damage and also has an extra swing range. Now, about 3 months ago, I actually compared these two weapons straight up against each other. Same enchantments, same everything. Of course, the Dark Claymore does slightly more damage, but for the price difference, I just concluded it wasn't worth it. Of course, unless you've got a ton of coins to spare, then fair enough. Anyway, let me just show you what this weapon can do. We've got Crimson Armor, and also we've got a level 200 Golden Dragon with 1 billion in the bank. My strength and crit damage is around about the same. Okay, so let's just have a quick check. We're almost dealing 1 million damage straight up. I mean, we just did deal a million damage, which is kind of cracked, not gonna lie. But for the most part, it's probably around about 900 to 950k damage on a one hit, which is ridiculous. Of course, this weapon has Soul Eater 2, so that means that it's only going to scale with higher tier mobs. Another thing to note is that this giant sword now has an extra 1 swing range. You would definitely not be able to do that with a regular sword that doesn't have increased swing range. Even if we just go against the Crypts, we're instantly going to deal more one-hit damage. We can actually test that. It's going to be consistently about 930 rather than 910, so that's amazing. But what happens when we go against higher tier mobs? Well, before we get into any of that, make sure to use code NITROS if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store. It gets yourself 5% off. Also, you should subscribe to the channel, it does help out a lot. And you should join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of this video. For example, these Endermen here in the sepulture, okay. 1.2 million damage, one hit, which is kind of cracked. This only does have Ender Slayer 5 on it too. How about we go to the Crimson Isles? This weapon with Crimson Armor, and we're able to one-tap the 2.5 million HP mobs. That wasn't a great example. But yeah, we can one-tap. But what can it do to a tier 5 rev? We should be able to kill this really, really quickly, realistically, doing 1 million damage a hit. Yeah, that was ridiculously quick. Now, I know, with revs you could use an ALTS, and I could use a 1 for all ALTS at this point, and probably deal like 50% more damage. But the fact that this is just regular giant sword, not too bad at all. Now, I've also gone ahead and bought a Felthorn Reaper, and that's because I want to test these two weapons in dungeons as Berserk, and you've got to hear me out. People have started to use the Dark Claymore as Berserk, and that's probably mainly due to it having the highest swing range. However, the stats on a giant sword and a Dark Claymore aren't even that much different. Plus, this whole Berserk update seems to have impacted the price of the giant sword quite a lot, which wouldn't make sense. Really, in theory, it just wouldn't make sense. So, I think it'd be interesting to try it out against a literal handcrafted Berserk weapon. But first I do need to put Smite 6 on this rather than Sharpness 6. And I am going to have to put some Fumins on this Felthorn Reaper. And I am most definitely going to have to switch from Crimson Armor to Necron. They're just trying to start a dungeon. Do you ever get this? Oops, you're not in Skyblock. You can't warp. This happens all the time. I'm sat in Skyblock, and now it's telling me to wait because I've already requested a server, even though I wasn't in Skyblock. So how could I request a server? Anyway. Okay, so first of all, we're using our Felthorn Reaper. We're going to deal around about 15k to 14k damage. That was a lot lower. 15k. See if we can get any more reliable numbers. 15k. Okay, so 15k damage looks about right. Switch to our giant sword. And what is this? 23? 21? Obviously we have... Yeah, 21 to 23. So... straight straight off the bat, the giant sword is doing a ton more damage. You do have to consider that the Felthorn Reaper's right-click ability is considerably more useful, especially in dungeons, than the giant swords. I mean, yeah, it's not too bad at all, really. Can't really complain. And we all know about the giant swords. Big sword. Now, of course, traditionally, the giant sword isn't a berserk weapon at all. It doesn't give you any bonus crit damage. Having said that, neither does the Valkyrie, and that's supposed to be surely the ultimate berserk weapon. Of course, there's a lot of problems with the Valkyrie, but anyway, I'd say one of the major differences between these two weapons is the fact that you get basically half an extra swing range with the Felthorn Reaper. Not to mention the Felthorn Reaper was around about 120 million, like the one that I got, or maybe 130, something like that. Which means that the giant sword is 100 mil more expensive. But this isn't even a comparison between those two weapons. It's just to show that the giant sword, I don't know why, it's just people don't use it anymore. They just don't use it. And maybe it has been outclassed by the Dark Claymore. But the weapons aren't really even that much different. Like, they're very, very similar. And like you can see, what I will say is that the one-hit damage between the Felthorn Reaper and the giant sword is not really a competition. The giant sword's got it in the bag. Oh, also, the giant sword is just... it is very versatile. We can just simply one-tap ghosts as well. Something that we wouldn't really be able to do with rival weapons unless you go to something like a Claymore. And of course, now the fact that it's a long sword and its swing range has been buffed, it makes grinding ghosts even better. Now, once again, the Claymore has +2 swing range, which means you can hit these ghosts from an extra block away, which, to be fair, is really useful. However, once again, there's not a huge difference. Now, despite this video being about the giant sword, I've talked quite a lot about the Felthorn Reaper, and that's just purely because it was something to compare the giant sword to within dungeons. In all honesty, I just saw the slander against the giant sword in that poll that I actually hosted yesterday, and I was like, is it really warranted? I mean, fair enough, don't use it if you don't want to. I mean, that's fine. Only 18% of people use it, according to my poll anyway. But don't throw shade at it. It is a good weapon. It's very, very versatile. It's used for many, many things. You can use it for mage, you can use it for berserk if you really want to, like I've shown. Ghost grinding, revs, you name it. It's just a good weapon. And honestly, for the price that it is at the moment, kind of a steal. Now, what would have been really cool to see is if they actually fully implemented an item that they had on the alpha for a period of time, and that was like a hybrid between a giant sword and a precursor eye. The sword was buffed if you had the precursor eye on. I don't know, it was pretty interesting, and I think that would have been really cool. Not the end of the world, though. Anyway, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.